When you owe the IRS, you have 5 options to take care of your back tax debt. You can set up an installment agreement. You can do an offer in compromise. You can move to currently non-collectible. You may qualify for bankruptcy, or you can just ignore it. While I highly recommend not ignoring it, it's what most people do because they don't realize the options that they have. The option that most people qualify for is an installment agreement. So in today's video, I'm going to review a Form 9465, which is an installment agreement request. I'm going to go over how you fill out this form to request an installment agreement from the IRS when you can do the full pay option, which means you can pay off the debt within 72 months. So let's get right to it. As I said before, this is a Form 9465. So whenever you are requesting an installment agreement by paper, or if you send this in with your return, this is the form that you would fill out. So I do want to give a disclaimer here. There's the tip right here on top of the form. If you owe $50,000 or less, you may be able to avoid filing this form, and you can just establish your installment agreement online. Even, excuse me, even if you haven't yet received a tax bill. So you can go to irs.gov/OPA, or you can just go to payments once you get there to apply for an online payment agreement. If you establish your installment agreement using the online payment agreement application, the user fee that you pay will be lower than if you send this form in. So that is just a little tip. If you are wanting to save money, you qualify to do full pay, and you owe $50,000 or less, you may be able to apply online. Okay. So Part 1, installment agreement request. This request is for forms, and then it'll be 1040 or 941. So 1040 is the form that we use to file individual income taxes. Form 941 is what we use to file payroll taxes. So it's for 1040. And let's just say that you owe this year because you had unemployment, and you also had, let's see, you had unemployment, and then you also were a gig worker, okay? So you did Instacart or some type of work like that during 2020, all right? So the tax year is for 2020. I shouldn't say you, I should say our taxpayer here. So what we're going to do in line 1A, we need to put the first name and initial. So we have Billy B. Booker, and it has to be the same way that it appears on the tax return, okay? So we have the social of 317-85-9874. Billy B. Booker is not married. If Billy B. Booker was married, we would have the spouse's first name, initial, last name, and social here as well. Now, I do want to point out, if you are married, but your spouse is not liable for this debt, which means the year that you filed that you owe for, they did not file with you, then you would also leave their information off, okay? So current address for Billy Bob is going to be 555 Big Ballin Avenue. He lives in Big Baller, California. And the zip code is 87901. Because he's in the United States, we don't have a foreign country name, foreign province, state, or county, or foreign postal code. If you are overseas, then you would fill out this information as well. Right here, 1B, you check this box if the address is different from the one that you filed or you used when you filed your last tax return. So Billy Bob's address is the same. We won't check that box. So this is not for a business. This is for Billy Bob's individual income tax. So we won't fill out line 2, but in the event that it was Billy Bob's business that he'd be setting up an agreement for can no longer be operating. Okay, so that is something I want to make sure that you do have in mind as well. If this installment agreement is for a business, the business can no longer be operating. All right, line 3. Whenever you fill out payment information for the IRS, they're going to want to know your phone number and the best time for them to call. So, shoot, I cannot even think of a California area code right now. So I'm going to use 502 since I'm at 502 632 3171 for the home number. We'll say 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. is the best time for them to call that number. The work number, we have 502-431-7895. No extension, but Billy Bob now works second shift, so we'll put best time to call there is 3 p.m. to 12 a.m. They likely won't call at work. They'll probably call at home, but they do request that information. So the amount that Billy Bob owes is $12,400, which is over the amount to have a, oops, sorry about that, guaranteed payment agreement, which he'd be able to do if he had a clean tax history and owed 10K or less. I'll talk about that in a different video because I also have an ebook to walk you through how to set that up yourself. So we can still do a streamline plan because this is under 50,000. He owes 12,400 for 2020. He has no additional balances from any other year. So we're going to add lines 5 and 6 together. Okay. And we have that 12,400. All right. With this request, Billy Bob is going to be able to send in $400, bringing the balance down to 12,000. Which, by the way, if you are able to make a payment with this request, I highly recommend that you do, because once you do that, that is going to, it's going to lower the amount of interest that's accruing. And I hate owing anybody and I hate paying interest. So I always recommend to my clients, if you can pay a little bit more in a certain month, go ahead and do that so we can pay the least amount of interest as possible. All right, so once we get here, we're going to divide the amount on line 9, which is this 12,000, by 72, because the IRS is going to give 72 months to pay this. So rounded, it's going to be $167. Not rounded, it's $166.66. We'll round that to 167. So once we've done that, on line 11, it says enter the amount you can pay each month. Make your payment as large as possible to limit interest and penalty charges. What I was just saying, as these charges will continue to accrue until you pay in full. If you have an existing installment agreement, which we know Billy Bob doesn't, because as I said before, he doesn't have a prior year balance. But if you do, then this amount should represent your total proposed monthly payment amount for your liabilities. If no payment amount is listed on line 11A, a payment will be determined for you by dividing the balance due on line 9 by 72 months. So the minimum they want here is 167. Billy Bob can do 200 a month, so that's what we're going to go with. If the amount on line 11A is less than the amount on line 10, and you're able to increase your payment to an amount that is equal or greater than the amount on line 10 into your revised monthly payment. So that was not the case. I'm sorry, hang on. We are able to pay more. So we have the $200. All right. So here in this box, if you can't increase your payment on 11B to more than or equal to the amount shown on line 10, which was the 167, check the box. Also, complete and attach Form 433F, Collection Income Information Statement. Because we can pay more than the 167, we're not going to check this box. And the information statement for Form 433F, I will do in another video to show you what type of information the IRS is looking for to see what your ability to be able to pay them back is. The Form 433F is also used to set up a partial payment installment agreement. So if the amount on line 11A or 11B, if applicable, is more than or equal to the amount on line 10, and the amount you owe is over 25,000, but not more than 50,000, then you don't have to complete Form 433F. However, if you don't complete Form 433F, then you must complete either line 13 or 14. Excuse me. So here, we're going to select a date that we want the payment to come out each month. The payment date can come out any day between the 1st and the 28th. I usually do the middle of the month for my clients. I know some practitioners that choose the end of the month, and it's very important to note on this, if you are going to be mailing payments in, this due date is the date that the payment must be received, not the date that it has to be postmarked by. Okay, so that is a little bit different than our traditional tax forms and tax returns that we fill out for other purposes. All right, so here 13, as it said before, 13 or 14 have to be filled out if it's more than 25,000. It's not for Billy Bob. However, I would still recommend, highly recommend, that he fill out this information, because with the debit, and just putting his fake routing and account number here, with the direct debit, it will come out of the account. You don't have the opportunity to forget about it and mess up your installment agreement, because at this point, with the installment agreement, we want to stay in good graces with the IRS so we can get back in compliance. Underneath the banking information is I authorize the U.S. Treasury and its designated financial agent to initiate a monthly ACH debit. So this gives the information, just giving your permission that the IRS can take the funds from your account each month. If something were to come up and you can't make the payment, the IRS would like for you to call no later than 14 days before the payment date, and you would call 1-800-829-1040 to let them know not to make that ACH debit. Or if you wanted to switch to a different account, you could let them know that as well. So there is a setup fee for the installment agreement. As I mentioned earlier, if you are setting it up online, the fee will be lower. So for low income taxpayers, they also have a lower fee for setting up an installment agreement. So as I mentioned before, you don't want to forget about the installment payment, because you do want to stay in good graces with the IRS. You can also select to have payments by payroll deduction, so it comes straight from your check. You would check box 14 here, and then also send in Form 2159. All right. So here, is where you would sign. So Billy Bob is going to sign right here and date this. By signing and submitting the form, I authorize the IRS to contact third parties and to disclose my tax information to third parties in order to process this request and administer the agreement over its duration. I also agree to the terms of this agreement as provided in the instructions if it is provided by the IRS. So the signature would go here, the date would go here. If you were filling out this form with your tax return, if it's e-filed, everything will be attached the way it's supposed to. If you're sending it in by paper filing, which I highly don't recommend, you would attach this to the front of your tax return. Now, here, part 2, on page 2, you complete this part only if all 3 conditions apply. 1, you defaulted on an installment agreement in the past 12 months. 2, you owe more than $25,000, but not more than $50,000. And 3, the amount on line 11A or 11B, if applicable, is less than line 10. Note, if you owe more than $50,000, also complete and attach Form 433F. Now, we know that Billy Bob did not owe more than 25,000. We also know that Billy Bob has not defaulted on an installment agreement, and he can pay more than the amount on line 10. However, for the purpose of showing you how to fill this form out, I'm going to go ahead and fill this part out as if Billy Bob lives here in Louisville, Kentucky with me, and he owes $30,000 and he can only afford to pay $100 a month, okay? So, oh, and I'm sorry, and he also defaulted on an installment agreement in the past 12 months. So his primary residence, like I said, he's in Louisville, Kentucky with me. So in which county is your primary residence? It's going to be Jefferson. He is yet single. Oops. So we're skipping to 17. How many dependents will you claim on this year's tax return? None. How many people in your household are 65 or older? 0. And the reason they ask this information, there is something called an allowable living expense. And when you can't afford to pay your IRS debt in full, the IRS looks at the allowable living expense, and that amount changes based on the amount of people that are in your home, how many people are contributing to expenses, and the ages of your dependents. All right, so 19, how often are you paid? Once every 2 weeks is what it is for Billy Bob. What is your net income per pay period? So let's say since he lost his job last year in 2020, right now he's only bringing $1,200 home every 2 weeks. All right. So we'll complete lines 21 and 22 only if you have a spouse and meet certain conditions. So since Billy Bob does not have a spouse, we aren't going to fill out these lines, but I am going to go over them, okay? It's going to ask for the same information for Billy Bob above. How often is your spouse paid? What is your spouse's net income per pay period? Then we want to know, or they want to know, how many vehicles do you own? Because there's also an allowable living expense for a vehicle. So Billy Bob has 1. How many car payments do you have each month? We have 1. Do you have health insurance? Billy Bob does have health insurance. So we're going to go to 25B. Are your health insurance premiums deducted from your paycheck? Yes. Okay. So his health insurance premiums deducted from his paycheck are $130 each month, because what we're doing again, we're looking at the allowable living expenses. So if he is having health insurance deducted from his paycheck, or even if it wasn't, he's just paying it in general, that's going to reduce his ability to be able to pay these back taxes right now. Do you have any court ordered payments? No, Billy Bob does not. So we're going to skip to line 27. And court-ordered payments would be things like child support, alimony, any type of debt like that, or from a lawsuit. So 27, not including any court-ordered payments for child and dependent support. How much do you pay for child or dependent care each month? He pays nothing. All right. So again, this is Form 9465. It is the form that you use to apply for an installment agreement with the IRS. Now, we do this for our clients when they need a partial pay agreement, a step-up agreement, which also requires additional forms. If you have a tax liability of over $10,000 and you cannot pay in full, I'd be happy to set up a call with you. You can book a call with me at www.bowenstaxsolutions.com. I will leave a link to my booking calendar down below. And until next time, you stay out of tax trouble.